Uh, Right. Thank you very much for joining us today. We are very happy to have you here, and we are excited that you are coming to South Africa. So my first question to you, is this the first time you will travel to South Africa?
Okay, so for myself, no, and for Westlake also no. So I was born in South Africa and lived there for 35 years of my life. Um, Westlake, I know, has done tours of South Africa before. So actually, back in 2008, I ended up coaching against Westlake when I was teaching at Rand Park High School. So Westlake has also done tours to South Africa in the past.
Wow. Wow. All right. Steve, do you have a question?
Yeah, basically to link up with your question, will this be the first time that you that Westlake is playing at St. John's Easter Festival?
Yes, that is my understanding. This will be the first time that we are at that festival.
Oh, brilliant.
Okay. Adno, do you have a question?
Yes, I've thought what I will ask. I thought about what I considered, put it that way, what I will ask this guy, the referee, because you can only ask so many questions. I mean, the coach, because you can only ask so many questions. But the thought that occurred to me this morning is it any different to teach? What is the difference between teaching a senior player and a schoolboy? The difference in terms of the techniques that you would be using, and maybe also in the method, how you will teach them to play, because they're young.
Yeah.
They can do much more than an adult person in terms of fitness and stamina. So what is the difference? How do you teach the two different groups?
Firstly, I don't think it matters what level you're coaching. Safety has to be your number one priority. You
Yeah.
know, at the end of the day, we want people to hold their grandkids and, enjoy life when they're older. So number one, with whatever you're doing, you have to put safety at the forefront. Then I think secondly, in terms of what's the difference between coaching, I would sum it up as people don't know what they don't know. So
Yeah.
when you're teaching younger people, you very much have to walk them through the technique, and explain all the basics. As players get older and more experienced, they've been exposed to different coaches and different techniques. And then it becomes, in a big way, debating which is the best way to do this, what is the way that we are going to use. So I'd say, typically at a younger age, it is much more of a coach-centric way of coaching. And then as they get older, you then far more player-centric, because a player has a lot more knowledge. And with that, they can share what they feel works better.
Right. Right. And from a coach perspective, I ask this to all the coaches that we've interviewed before. Where do you stand, or where are you during the match? Are you next to the field? Are you in the stands? Or do you have like a coach's box? Where do you prefer to be during a match?
Okay, so in our competition, the North Harbour competition, the coaches have to be behind the poles. So, with that, we actually don't have a lot of choice in that. I do believe that, Saturday is for the players, and it's very much about them. So as a coach, I try to be in a position when not governed by those rules, where I have a good view of the field. I can take in as much information as possible and maybe just pass on small little bits of information. But the players that are on the field, they need to be making the decision. So, coaches shouldn't really be heard on the sideline, in my opinion, during a match. We can do small things, make small adjustments in terms of tactics and that. But as a general rule, we need to be in a position where we can observe what is happening, and then just, provide players with the best feedback as possible.
Right.
Wow.
So, Steve, your next question.
Yes. I'm pretty sure the fixtures are out for the Easter Festival. Is there a specific game that you guys have identified that is going to be a standout game that you really, really would love to have a great performance? Or is every single game going to be incredible, valuable for you?
Yeah, so look, I think firstly, we're bringing 32 boys over to South Africa.
Okay.
And one of the big things is we saw this as a great opportunity to develop our squad.
Yeah.
South Africa, New Zealand, is there a better rivalry, in the world? Anyway, not in rugby. So, taking our boys over there, really putting them in the furnace, I think is going to pay off for us, this year and in the future. So that's one of the big things. Now, at that Easter festival, our first game is against Monument.
Wow.
And that they are an incredible rugby school. So yes, we look forward to that very, very much. Then we've got Welkom Gymnasium.
Yes.
And they very, very, very tough as well. And then our final game is Hoërskool Randburg. So, in total, we've got 3 really good fixtures where we're going to be able to give our squad of 32 a run. And just, sorry, I know outside of the festival, we're then traveling to Cape Town, Stellenbosch, and we're going to be playing Port Roos. Not their first 15, but, we got a bit of a connection at the World Schools Festival in Abu Dhabi in 2020, what was that, 4? And so, we're going to go link up with them again. So overall, I think we've got a very nice group of fixtures. And with that, there isn't one that I would single out. But, Monas and Welkom Gymnasium, those will be 2 big fixtures there at that St. John's Festival. And then obviously playing Port Roos, that's always a classic, So we're looking forward to them.
Oh, nice. Arno, your next question.
I would just like to know if you play other schools in countries except South Africa, in other countries.
Yes. So to answer that, we, pretty much at the school, we have a league that we're in. So that forms the majority of our season. So this year it runs from the 25th of April, the league, all the way through then till the end of August. Okay. And with that, we then set up fixtures around that. So we will then play this year. They're all local. When I say local, New Zealand schools. We play an Auckland school called St. Peter's as our first preseason game. We have Hamilton boys each year as a traditional fixture. We then are playing Hastings boys. And then there's a school, Tauranga boys, that we also play every year as a traditional fixture, and New Plymouth boys. So we have that. There are touring sides that we'll occasionally pick up. And then, we've been really blessed in the last couple of years. 2023, we went to the World Schools Festival. So obviously got to play international sides. And we did the same in 2024. And then we do look to do a tour sort of every 2-3 years. Okay. Just gives you a different perspective. There's no one way of doing anything. And it's just really good to tour different places and get the different take on rugby all over the world.
Absolutely. Oh, yes.
That's good.
And from a coaching perspective, I know for a long time the All Blacks loved, their whole philosophy was running rugby, things like this. So do you adopt that same strategy at schoolboy level, or are you like, okay, cool, this is my coaching style, this is how I'm going to coach?
Yeah, look, I think firstly, and I've been really lucky in my life in that I've been able to travel to many different parts of the world and see how rugby's played all over. And the one thing is that people tend to fall back on what they're good at.
Right.
And one of the first things that strikes you when you come to New Zealand is how talented the boys are. They're just born with the ball in their hand, running, passing, kicking, skillful. And it is different. The different schools here have very different makeups. In terms of the way that they play. At Westlake, we tend to have slightly smaller boys. So, our philosophy is a high-tempo, high-skill game where everyone's involved.
Right.
So yes, that's what we look to do. It wouldn't be the same in every single school, but as a general rule, the Kiwi boys really, as everywhere, they love their rugby. And they're really good with ball in hand. That catch pass especially is a step up to other places that I've been.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Arno, next question from you.
I would like just to ask you, you know what? It's in New Zealand. If you generally think about New Zealand, the people there are good at playing almost in any sporting code. Why would that be the case? Is that the physical area in the country, the physical situation in terms of the build of the country, or is there something else? Why are New Zealand so good in almost every code?
Yeah, look, firstly, the people here love being outside. It's one of the reasons that I actually decided to immigrate here was it's very similar to South Africa. So, when they're not outside doing sport, you're outside fishing or at the beach or something like that. So, the people really enjoy that.
Yes.
Then, it's a really good question that you've asked because, why would one place be so good at the different sports? But I think one of the benefits of having a smaller population is that you're able to put systems and structures in place that allow for that. And I do think they're better than when I was in South Africa. I can't talk for now, but you have these systems that identify players really early,
right?
And you're able to develop them. And I think when you've got a big population, if someone doesn't perform, you move them on. Where with a smaller population, you actually have to develop that player. And so I think that's critical is getting your systems and structures right. And I do think that leads to good performance in a variety of sports.
Yes.
And sorry, I'll just add one more thing.
Yes.
If I use Westlake, the variety of sport is also incredible.
Yes.
Our school does over 40 different sports codes.
Wow.
So, you've got all your traditional, your rugby, your football, your cricket, your rowing, those kind of things. And then you've also got like your lacrosse and your ultimate frisbee, and those sports are all here. So just the variety of skills that the boys are exposed to does mean that you're developing probably more holistic athletes.
Yes. Because I think this is where New Zealand and South Africa are very similar. As you know, from a South African perspective, you were here. There are a lot of sporting codes, and they've added a few. I mean, when we were still at school, because there were so many boys that like to play golf. So eventually this became a school sport. Now it's very big across the country. So I think this is also why the rivalry between the All Blacks and the Springboks are so huge, because they are very similar when it comes to sport. I'm an English teacher by profession. I teach English to the Chinese, and all they care about is to have the best marks, this, to get into university. And then they ask me, teacher, is this the case in South Africa? I said, no, you can almost fail, but you get national colors in any sporting code, you still have a chance to go to university. And they're like, oh, that is so nice. I said, so because it's part of our culture, I think this also makes a very big difference. And now from just another thing from my side, because you leave the boys alone on the field, so is there like a structure between the forwards and the backs to say, all right, things aren't going well, let's change what we were doing? Do the captain and the vice captain have that authority to say, okay, we've trained, we've done this during the week, but it's not working, and then they change? Is that allowed?
Yes. Look, I think one of the important things about a good game plan is that you've got to have different ways that you are able to attack. So if you can only run the ball, teams can shut that down. So you also need to have a good maul and a good scrum, and to be able to kick and all those facets. And I think one of the key things is working out what works for you and what's working on the day, and being able to execute that.
Okay. Right. Steve.
Yes, if I can, in South Africa, you also be aware we've got this schoolboy rivalries and derbies. I know myself and Ruby come from Randburg, so we got our two biggest rivalries were against Linden, and then of course Monument that you're going to play in the first match. Is there a school that you in New Zealand that's a classic rivalry for your team, and which school team is that?
Yes, so on the North Shore, in the North Harbour competition, our biggest rival would be Rosmini College.
Okay.
So, we're down the road from each other, approximately 3 odd kilometers. And that is a big game every year.
Yeah.
It's often broadcast on TV.
Wow.
So, it was on Sky TV last year. And yes, that would be our biggest rival.
Wow.
Adnan?
If you play New Zealand, you've got to be very careful because you might think that you're winning and that you've got a good lead in the score now. But here at the end, you might be surprised. They always make a comeback and they might even win the match. It's a question of never say die with these guys. How do you teach your schools team that?
Look, resilience, and I would classify what you've just described as resilience, is something that you learn.
Yeah.
And, in the Kiwi culture, they're very tough, very resilient people already.
Yeah.
In terms of your team, you have to put them in situations where they have to dig deep. And, so as an example, your fitness sessions, we use a system called MAS, and it's really, really tough on the boys, and they have to work hard and they have to dig deep, and they build resilience through that. And you also have to give them the opportunities against big, tough opposition. Your trainings have to be tough, and in those ways you develop that resilience. And I also think really key around that is that you have to provide a safe environment for people to fail, because at the end of the day, we're working with kids.
Yes.
And, they're not professional athletes, but even with professional athletes, you need the safe place to fail. And you've got to be able to make mistakes and learn from them and grow. Because if you get that culture right within your team, they will then be resilient.
Yes.
So true.
That is very interesting. And so also now with the team that's coming over that you have now, how many of those boys are in grade 12 that once the season is finished, then go to university? From the second team, do you have a lot of grade 12s or grade 11s, or from the under 16 that will come through to the first team next year? How is that balance?
Okay, so just to tell you, in New Zealand, you have 13 years of school.
Okay.
So the equivalent of matric is what we call year 13 in New Zealand.
Okay.
You also don't have an under 16 age group.
Okay.
So you play under 14s, you play under 15s, and then it's your senior, your first 15 seconds, etc. And you do have weight grade rugby. As an example, there's what they call 1R, which is then your under 85 kilograms, etc. So in the group that we are bringing of the 32, we are approximately a third of the group year 13s, a third year 12s, and a third year 11s. It's slightly more, towards the year 13s, but it's roughly a third of each. The other thing that is different in New Zealand is that with a school intake in the year, boys often finish school when they are 17 years old and not 18.
Okay.
So, you'll have boys in year 13 that are actually 17 years old.
Okay.
So, we often have some really talented boys that go on and leave and go off to university or go work that are 17 years old. Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, and obviously, there's a huge gap between school level and then senior level. So when you've identified a top player that's got the potential to really step up to become a great player in the future, what is your role to prepare him or to mold him basically to get from the next step from school level to the next level, which will obviously maybe university level or maybe even New Zealand under 21 or senior level, depending on the talent?
Yeah, that's a good question. So at Westlake, we have, firstly, we have a rugby academy. So what
Okay.
that means is that when the boys start, so the schooling, high schooling is from year 9 to year 13.
Yeah.
So if they are selected from year 9, 10, and 11, they are then able to choose rugby academy as a subject.
Okay. Wow.
And so within that, so 3 times a week, they will either get SNC or they will get skills and basic training. So, that's something that does happen.
Wow.
Then obviously within the school, we have our under 14s, under 15 seconds first, that usual pathway where we develop players. Talking about, so if you've got players that you see potential in, I think your biggest thing is to really get the basics right.
Yeah.
Because your talented players are naturally freakish athletes, and they can run around or over or through other players. And where you start to find it difficult is you've got to be able to execute those basic skills under pressure against people that are just as big, strong, and fast as you when you get to that next level.
True.
And so by really instilling those basics in them, that is the best thing you can do for them at the top level. And then, I think just teaching good habits, being learning how to train properly, getting through to your strength and conditioning sessions in the morning, eating right, looking after your body, rehab, etc. And then even your mental side, your mental prep, how do you go about that? And if you can teach those good habits when they're young, hopefully that is something that will live with them for the rest of their lives as they go on and play top level competitive sport.
Absolutely.
Adnan?
I don't know. I don't want to ask your trade secrets,
Yeah.
but you mentioned this MRS training.
Yeah.
The physical training, basically, from what it sounds. In South Africa, you run around the track or something like that. But what is that specifically that you do? And what do you think works best in terms of physical training?
Yeah, look, so firstly, I'm really blessed in that we've got an amazing S&C, so strength and conditioning a group at our school, crew. And, they are experts in what they do. They are well trained. And so pretty much I'm hands off with that stuff. I just hand over to them and they are able to do it. But what it is MAS is your maximum aerobic speed. So typically what you do is you get the boys to run a Bronco, and then you're able to calculate how many meters per second they are traveling.
Wow.
And then with that, you are then able to work out training blocks. So where you can train at 90% of their maximum aerobic speed over longer distances, or they are training at 120% of that, doing shorter sprints, etc. And so with that, you're using a very scientific way that each boy in your team is training at a high level. So what it looks like for us in essence is on our field, let's just say from the try line to 60 meters would be for the props, but this will be calculated for each boy. And then from the try line to, let's just say, the 65 meters is the locks, and all the way to the wings where it would be, let's just say, 90 meters and back. And then you have got, I don't know, I'm just making this up, but let's just say 90 seconds to do 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you get a 30-second rest and you then go again. And so this is all then just calculated by, as I said, by our exercise specialists that do that. But it is something that you can just Google and look up.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
And
That's interesting.
you also coming from South Africa, so obviously the Craven Week and SA schools and things like this. Is there a similar system in New Zealand where they choose a region, combine them, and then eventually if they're good enough, they play for the New Zealand schools team?
Yes. So, okay. There's a number of teams that happen, and they start just depending on which area, under 13s, etc., as an example. But if we're talking about high school kids, so our local union, North Harbour, they will have an under 16, an under 18, an under 20, and under 19 and development team that happens at the end of the season. And like right now, I'm actually one of the coaches for the North Harbour under 20 team as well.
Okay.
So what happens is at the end of August, when your competition ends, your unions, then Auckland, North Harbour, Northland, Waikato, whatever, they will all select their under 18s. And then within sort of a regional, where it's within sort of 2-3 hours travel, there'll be a competition set up. And so the players will play in that. Now the system has changed slightly, but basically to get selected for New Zealand, firstly after school, you can get selected into an academy. So all of the like North Harbour, Auckland, etc., each one of those unions will have an academy. And that runs typically under 19s, under 20s, and under 21s. But now, as an example, for selection for New Zealand under 20s, you will have, so firstly, each of those regions will have a team and they will play a game. And then you will get your big region, like the Blues. They will then select an under 20 side. And so the Blues under 20s will then play the Chiefs under 20s. Now, they used to have a competition in Taupo. That's not there at the moment, where all the under 20s used to play each other, and that's how they used to select the New Zealand under 20 side. But basically, from high school, there is rugby at the universities, but mostly the boys go to club. And then, obviously, if you're lucky enough, you're in an academy. And from that, you play your way into the regional side. And then so into the North Harbour, into the Blues, and then into the All Blacks. I hope that all made sense.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. Okay. So very interesting. Steve.
Yeah, no, I don't have any questions. From my side, I just would like to wish you guys all the best, and we are extremely looking forward to see you guys in action.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we're really looking forward to heading over. We're really excited about it.
Brilliant.
Arno?
Well, I've actually just want to join Steve and say, well, I hope you guys enjoyed here and that we will see some excellent rugby very soon.
Thank you. We'll do our best.
I have two questions for you just before we end off. One, are you going to bring supporters over as well?
We will have some parents traveling with us, yes.
Okay. All right.
Brilliant.
Okay. So only parents. Okay. And then number two, you as a South African that's immigrated there, you are coaching within the school system. Now, this is a very stupid question for you, but would you ever consider going outside of the school system, maybe university and maybe the regional teams like the Chiefs or whatever, and eventually the All Blacks, or not really?
Okay, so look, I'm a teacher and I love teaching.
Right.
But my passion is rugby. I'm hugely passionate about rugby.
Right.
So yes, I think if there, you'd have to see what it is. But if there was a professional offer, I would be very tempted at that.
Oh, right. I will be your wingman. Count me in.
Awesome. I've got an agent.
But yes, and we are looking forward to having you guys here. We had an interview with Naji College from Australia last week. So it seems they are also very excited to come through. And yeah, so then you will be back home, just enjoying. I think you would be able to tell the boys, all right, this is South Africa. They're very hostile. And another question for you, how are the parents when they watch the game? Are they like especially the South African moms? You never mind the ref, never mind anyone. You just listen to the moms and then you know what's going on. Is that the same in New Zealand?
No, there's a bit of a different culture here. Yes, we do have excited parents. You know, there is
Yeah.
always one mom who's overly excited. But I would say that the spectating is a bit more subdued than it is in South Africa.
All right.
Brilliant.
Okay. Good. Yeah, so thank you very much for your time. This was really insightful.
Yeah.
And we will see you at St. John's. We plan to go. So, yeah, we will see you in a couple of weeks.
Awesome. I really look forward to seeing you all there. And
Yes.
yeah, please come and find us when you're there at St. John's.
Will do.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.